Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. It's my proud privilege to welcome all the panelists today on this virtual platform, along with the Executive Secretary, Hans Sawyer sir, and Ms. Kristen. Recently, we have attended the Industry Forum in Cape Town, and it was such a fun to be part of the Industry Forum, meeting everyone, discussing, and I could see the enthusiasm amongst the group. Each one was, competing with each other and trying to do their best. So it was fun seeing people from industry and education come together and discuss, come out with conclusions. Some insights were also presented. So going ahead, I would like to welcome Kristen Williamson and introduce her. She is the founder and CEO of Petrus Communications, a company that works to bring companies together with university leadership, faculty, and students, all the three major stakeholders. Kirsten has been involved in the creation and implementation of boundary-spanning initiatives that address goals of stakeholders, including the Global Engineering Deans Council, Industry Forum, and the Airbus Quantum Computing Challenge. What I know of Kirsten, she is an enthusiastic person, always bubbling with energy, full of energy, and determined to connect industry with the academicians. The way she connects, her language is soothing to both the parts of the world. I don't say they are separate, but then the thought process in an industry is different as compared to the education field. But she connects both the worlds beautifully. According to Kirsten, the key factors driving success in boundary spanning activities are the clear identification of a problem, an extensive understanding of the motivations of different groups, the availability of financial resources, and personal and professional networks that are open to newcomers. So we know there are lots of challenges, and I think she really knows how to find her way ahead by boundary spanning. And that's really a tough job, Kirsten. I really know it. She is driven to span boundaries between universities and business by a desire to positively impact society as a whole, and particularly regions struggling with economic development like the one she grew up in. She highlights observational skills which allow individuals to identify needs in the environment that have been addressed inadequately. So I think there is lots and lots of work which needs to be done for connecting the industry with the academia, because ultimately the manpower planning or the manpower development which the educational institutes is doing ultimately goes into industries. And if this interaction, if the insights into the requirement of industries are known and felt by the academicians, it will surely help to develop a better graduate which will be sent into the market and do and perform better in his or her life. So with this, over to you, Kirsten. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Sushma. Thank you for those words, and it's interesting to reflect on them as I hear you introduce me. Indeed, there's a lot of enthusiasm for bringing together these worlds of education and industry, which often work so much side by side and touching at points, but never really meshing. Sushma, I hope so much that you will stay with us and join our conversation again in 40 minutes or so, because once we've discussed more about what happened during the Industry Forum, I'd really love to bring it back to you as well as the elected leader coming in to the GEDC in a year's time, because we'll definitely be talking about what should happen next, and it will be wonderful to have, well, your own view from your great career and professionalism in this field, but also from the perspective of the GEDC. So thank you for the welcome, and we'll come back to you. So thank you all. I know Krishna, who sadly can't be with us today, usually says good morning, good afternoon, good evening as well, and I will say that too. It's wonderful to have so many people joining us from around the world. It's actually wonderful to see the interest in what happened at the Industry Forum, with people who I know have participated in the past, joining again to catch up on what happened this time. So welcome everybody. I know that you can't necessarily see each other and chat with each other. Don't hesitate to write in the chat or in the questions, just to say hello if you would like to, so that others on the webinar know all who is here. And before I will introduce in a second the panelists who I've got with us today, all involved in different and unique ways in the Industry Forum. I also notice in the audience several people who are very, very involved in the preparation and in the activity itself. And please do stay ready to join us. I would definitely be very happy if I can call on you. I notice, for example, Soma and Neil, to say a word about the idea and the presentation that you put together as well. So I hope that will be all right with you. And I know as we move along, the webinar host will enable that. Usually people are not able to speak questions during the webinars, but I hope that will be possible today. So for those of you who are not so familiar, just very, very quickly, Petrus is a global design agency working with industry, mainly as our clients, looking at how to improve or how to solve problems that happen between academia, universities, industry, and students, and mainly with the objective of, for recruitment, for better competence development, for more innovation. And so when in 2017 and in the years leading up to that, several of the companies that we were working for said we'd like to be more involved in development of engineering education and share our views on what's needed. And those discussions with, at the time, John Bainan, Peter Kilpatrick, successive leaders of the GEDC and their executive committees came to the design of the Industry Forum, a short event, not a conference, but a gathering where in almost equal numbers we bring together representatives and leaders from universities around the world, members of the GEDC and industry representatives, on purpose not to listen to speeches and talks. There's a role for that, of course, and we all learn a lot from the speeches that we heard during the World Engineering Education Forum. But in this case, in the Industry Forum, we want to hear a collaborative working. In fact, in the first event in 2017, and again this time in South Africa, we had nearly 2,000 years worth of experience in the room. So rather than hearing one person speak to many, we really wanted all the voices to be heard and everybody to share their experience on the themes that we addressed. That's the principle of the Industry Forum, and we've continued in that way. So what we're going to talk about today is what were those insights and information and learnings that were shared, and what did we do with them on the spot in the working groups that we had during the day on the 1st of December, just 2 weeks ago. And what are we going to do with them now, as we really did come up with some great ideas and some problems that need to be addressed and that we can address as we go forwards. So just to set the scene, we'll take a look at the themes that we addressed. And we came up with these 4 themes by looking at all of the problems and all of the ideas that had been raised during previous editions of the Industry Forum. And actually they fell quite neatly into these 4 themes of skills and talent, educational transformation, discovery and innovation, and societal impact. And working as we were with Jennifer Bradford, who's here with us, and Yanis Yortsis from the University of Southern California. Yanis, from his dean's perspective, said actually these themes match very well with the way that I structure the strategic themes that we work on at the School of Engineering too. And Yanis actually shared a very insightful presentation during the beginning of the Industry Forum, and that presentation is available for anybody who would like to see it. We'll make sure that there's a link to it in the follow-up from this webinar. So we've identified these themes. So what to do next, how to address these themes. This is where we called on the support of some experts and leaders in the field who were our moderators. And This gives me a great opportunity to say thank you once again, because moderators, you worked really hard and you did a great job. The moderator's role began before the Industry Forum by connecting and discussing, okay, what are the key questions? What's the state of the art? How do we want to address these themes as we go forwards? And then coming up with a question that will be addressed on the spot, and helping to coordinate and lead the and inspire, even I think I would say, the participants of the Industry Forum to come up with the great ideas and presentations that you did. And so we have Dietmar and Jen with us as leaders of two of the themes, and we also, as I said, have several people in the audience representing some of the other themes. We definitely will call on you. And just before we come to our panelists, let's take a look at the questions that each theme addressed on the day. So the first one related to skills and talents. So this was Dietmar and PJ put together these two questions for two different brainstorm groups to address. What are the technical skills and talents that engineering programs should strive to impart on their graduates? And likewise, what are the professional, creative, and leadership skills and talents that engineering programs need to impart? So this is how we started the theme, skills and talent. We also looked at educational transformation, where we had two strong questions for the brainstorming groups to address. What are the next steps that we collectively can take to make micro-credentials valuable to learners and society and industry? It's a huge topic. I know that many of you are working in this field right now. And then what are the next steps for us to embed a sustainability mindset through the engineering curriculum? Then in discovery and innovation, one question, all the design groups working on discovery and innovation address the same question: why do university industry partnerships fail? Which suggests that we can go further and do more and better if we can work out how can university industry partnerships work better. And then finally, societal impact, and it's such a growing and important theme, and actually was the theme of our last webinar, which you can tune into on the Industry Forum website and listen to a great discussion on this. How can universities and how can companies measure and demonstrate their societal impact? So let's now take a look at what was discussed and what did we hear related to each of these themes with our panelists, which I would like to take a second to invite to introduce. So I'm going to invite you panelists to introduce yourself to the audience. So it's not just me talking today. In fact, we're going to hear from all of you. Let's start off with yourself, Jen.
Thanks so much. Are you guys able to hear me?
Yeah.
I'm Jen Bradford. I work for Siemens Digital Industries Software in our global academic program. It's my day job. My other roles are on the executive committee for the Global Engineering Deans Council and the Industry Advisory Council for ABET. So my role in the industry was kind of to serve as a link between the GEDC Executive Council and Petrus and Kirsten to do some planning. My secret role in that was as a fangirl of the Industry Forum. It is absolutely my favorite event every year. It's always such a fun thing. It was incredible to get to do it in person with everybody in South Africa. So we looked at educational transformation, and that could mean lots of things, but through some pre-work, we really surfaced the idea of micro-credentials and sustainability as the things with the power to transform. So looking forward to talking more about that.
Thank you so much, Jen, and thanks for all your support for the event too. And over to you, Dietmar. Let's hear what from you. Obviously, introduce yourself and tell us how were you involved in the Industry Forum this year.
Hi, everybody. I assume you can hear me. Shake your head if you don't. I'm Dietmar Remfer. I'm the director of the School of Engineering at Purdue University Northwest. For about a little bit more than 1.5 years now, I'm also interim dean for the College of Engineering and Sciences, which is somewhat relevant to our topic because that means I now also have oversight over the sciences we teach, how we teach them, and how the sciences interact with engineering education, which is one of the topics that we found out is something that's subject to improvement. I'm also a member of the executive committee of the Global Engineering Deans Council. One of the things that's close to my heart myself, I'm living and working in the United States for about 25 years now, but I grew up and basically got my socialization in the profession as well as generally as a person in a different culture than the one I'm living in. So I'm particularly sensitive to the differences and the opportunities that come from these differences that lie in the interaction of different cultures, different engineering cultures in particular. I think there's great benefit in engineers from different cultural backgrounds talking to each other. German engineers oftentimes have different approaches to doing things than engineers in the United States or in South America or even just in other countries of Europe. And so there's things that we all can learn from each other, and I'm really passionate about these things. With respect to our topic, our skills and talents theme, that's also an area that I've been particularly active in. We'll talk more about this. But I strongly believe this is not just a one-time thing where maybe this panel or any group at one point says, well, these are the kinds of skills and talents that we should now add to our engineering education, and then that's it. One of the really important pieces is to have this ongoing conversation between industry and universities. And one of the questions to talk about then is, how do we implement this? What is the framework that can make sure that we can have this ongoing, continuous conversation?
Brilliant. Thank you, Dietmar. It's so true that diversity, intercultural diversity, but many kinds of diversity is actually what makes some of the solutions that we come up with so rich, I think, getting all of those different perspectives on board. So thank you for bringing that as well. Let's go to Jan from Elsevier. Jan, do you want to introduce yourself to us? And also, what was your role this year in the Industry Forum? First time that you actually were able to participate in person, which was great.
Thank you, Kristen. My name is Jan Quint. I'm Sales Director for Engineering Solutions at Elsevier. First of all, probably everyone knows Elsevier as journals publisher, but we are more than that. So we provide deep dive into teams like health, but also engineering, and that is where I'm located. I'm responsible for the engineering solution sales. And for me, it's really exciting to be in the Industry Forum because it brings together the two worlds that I'm serving on a day-to-day basis. On the one hand, we're helping our industry customers to solve problems, to make the next breakthrough invention, and then also to scale it up into production, making sure that there is no corrosion in the pipes and all these kind of stuff. So the day-to-day work that engineers are doing on site, and there are hundreds or thousands of engineers that using our solutions every day to make that progress. On the other hand, we have an academic angle, and over the last couple of years, we have seen that engineering faculties more and more desires to have the world of work into the classroom. So moving away from this scientific approach more to the skills-based approach, we see that engineers of the future needs to be way more multidisciplinary. For example, if I'm a mechanical engineer, once I graduate, go into the industry, it's never going to be just mechanical. Yeah, I have a role to fill, and there are multiple problems that could come to me, which is not necessarily in the range of what I graduated in, but I still need to solve that problem. And that needs a different kind of skill set that the industry is demanding from the faculties to embed that into the curricula. And here is where the Industry Forum, I think, comes together to build on that and to progress this whole topic. And then at the end of the day, there's also sustainable development goals, which I think we all feel becomes a much broader societal impact. And I'm a true believer that to achieve those sustainable development goals, it needs engineers. No engineers, no sustainable development goals achieved. And that is where I think we're in the spotlight of our world and in the race for achieving net zero at some point. So that's why I'm excited to be there. And I believe that we at Elsevier, we can build a bridge between the industry, the academia, which is heavily needed.
Thank you so much, Jan. It's great to have you with us, and it was great to have your team with us as well, and to have all of those different opportunities for interaction on exactly the topics that you bring. And that's a lovely link that you finish on the Sustainable Development Goals, because that's a perfect opportunity to bring in Maria Laura from SPEED. And this was, you know, we've had student involvement, what we call the student voice, in the industry forum right from the start. But we really we kind of had the student voice on steroids, I think, this year, with a lot more involvement. So do you want to tell us all about that, Maria Laura? Tell us about who you are in SPEED, and what was your role in the industry forum this year?
Yes, absolutely. So as Kirsten said, I'm Maria Laura from SPEED, which is the student platform for engineering education development. And this year, the student participation in the industry forum was very interesting. So generally, what SPEED does is we help coordinate the student activities for the conference in general, but we don't usually have that much hands-on participation in the industry forum itself. Whereas this year, students had diversity of roles. So for example, there were a couple of students that had a supportive role during the entire week and on the day of the industry forum, where they were assisting with logistics and materials and a number of things to make everything, you know, go smoothly. So it worked sort of like a mini internship for those students, which was really, really interesting. And then also the students didn't have to do it for free, which was great. So thank you, Kirsten, for that, because we really appreciate that. And it was a really great experience from them. The feedback that I got from those students was very good. And it also gave them a chance to get to know real employers, the people that are actually making change in the industry and in academia. So it was a very good interaction. And then the other role that we had was at the end of the industry forum, well, at the beginning, actually, we had a sustainability panel, which was very enriching, and we all really enjoyed it. And we value that it was sort of setting the base for the development of the workshop that was going to come next. So you had students just, you know, give our inputs, and that was going into your work. So that was very valuable for us. And then at the end, those same students were in the judging panel, which was a lot of fun. We enjoyed that so much because we are generally on the receiving end of the feedback. So having that chance to sort of flip the tables a bit was a lot of fun. And also the feedback that we received from all parties after that was very interesting, and we would definitely love to do it again. Something that I find very, very interesting in this activity, in this event, is that it puts, it's interesting to see the people in industry and academia in a role that we don't commonly see them as students. So it sort of brings them closer to us. It sort of bridges the gap between the student in preparation and the person higher up in their career. And we see them doing an activity that generally we do, working together, coming up with ideas, brainstorming, trial and error. So I think that is very, very valuable. And as students, that was a very entertaining and enriching dynamic.
Thank you so much, Maria Laura. Thanks for your comments. And I will just underline, yeah, I so strongly believe in paid internships. I know that all of the companies here do as well, but even if it's just for a week, getting students to actually do proper work, hard work, and earn money for it. I love the learning that comes out from that. Wonderful that you mentioned, and I should just underline, the survey that you talked about, the panel that we had on sustainability skills was sponsored by Siemens, and that report will be available very soon. So look out, follow Jen on LinkedIn, or look out for an email coming out, because you'll be able to get the detailed report of what students see as the skills required to embed sustainability and how to get those skills and what's lacking in the classroom. And we'll have a short report of that coming out very soon as an article as well, so look out for that. And then in terms of the jury, well, in fact, what I personally was super impressed by was how well considered your questions to the presenters and your feedback for the industry dean teams was compiled. And I know that you worked with Reese from Airbus to support you and construct that, but I think you just did a remarkable job. So thank you very much for that. And we'll be absolutely delighted to have you back in the same role in the future. So let's dive in, and we'll start at the beginning. I think come to Jen just very briefly, Jen. What is the industry? What happens at the Industry Forum? What do we do? And then let's hear a bit more about what we learned in this year's episode.
Sure. So I think the thing I love about the Industry Forum is that it doesn't have to involve me sitting in a chair and not doing anything for very long. I like that it is really so interactive. So the first part of it is kind of a rapid fire brainstorm. You're really getting people to just get a lot of ideas out there and really kind of cross-pollinate a lot of ideas, because folks are circulating around and jumping from table to table to table and hearing other folks' ideas and talking about things and just throwing things out there. And then you have this interim phase where the group facilitators like myself, Dietmar, kind of consolidate all of that information, and then we get to pull our own teams together and sort of send them out into the world to answer some real questions. And I love that there's always a really creative element to that. Would just like to point out that my team has now won 2 years in a row. No, I love the creativity. Like sometimes you see a movie, sometimes you see skits or plays acted out, sometimes it's something entirely unexpected. But at the core of it, it's always, what are we going to do next? I feel like so many times if you're at a conference or even a workshop, you hear all of these fantastic ideas and then you just have nowhere to ground those out and no plans to make. And so having the Industry Forum as a way to take everything that we talked about and learned about and discussed at WEEF and to really synthesize that into some actionable next steps is everything to me. That is really just the perfect wrap up.
Great, thank you. And I guess, why do we do it like that? There's some process and thought behind, in particular, that we want the output to be memorable, for people to remember what we talked about, how we talked about it, all of the different people involved, and the creativity of the presentations is such a great anchor for that. And also to have fun. I mean, personally, I think, we all work well when we're having fun, right? So let's bring more fun into what we do, even though we're dealing with difficult problems and challenges. Helps us to appreciate the colleagues and people around us. We really did have fun, and a great deal thanks to all of you and your sense of fun as well. So thank you for that. Dietmar, let's jump into, what did we hear? What did we learn? So you were leading on the skills and talent. What insights did you feel you pulled from what was discussed in Cape Town?
Yeah, I'll give you an answer to your question in just a second. But first, two things I want to do first. I told Maria this already at the forum, and this is along the lines of what you already said. Myself certainly, but I think all of us were really impressed by the quality of the feedback we received from the students. And yes, we constantly get feedback too when we submit proposals, when we argue for something to our higher ups at the university. We are being evaluated too. But the quality of the feedback we get is, varies. And so what we got in this case from the students was really, really good. So I want to give them a shout out for the great work they did here as well. The other thing is, yes, we had a lot of fun. There's a lot of creativity there, sometimes even to the point where I exactly remember what the skit was all about. But I'm not quite sure anymore. So what was the theme behind there? So no, I'm kidding here. So on our theme, skills and talent, there's two components to that. One of them is to identify what are potential skills and talents that we're not currently to a sufficient degree imparting on our students. And then the second question, once we have identified these, the second question is, what are the best ways to improve things? How can we improve our curriculum? Can we improve our syllabi in order to do better on that front? One piece of information that came in there that fed into our work that turned out to be really important was a survey that the American Society of Engineering Education, ASAE, had done a skills gap analysis, I think just a few months before the workshop, where they were asking industry for feedback as to, and where they were asking in particular, they were asking recent graduates that had just started to work in industry for the experience as to what was valuable from the education they had received and what they felt was missing. And that was very interesting information there. One of the things we learned from our US education perspective was that whenever there were items that are part of ABIT requirements, ABIT outcomes that were defined in our overall curriculum that are important for accreditation, those we're doing very well on. Typically graduates say, yeah, they feel very competent on these things. Whereas if there's other things, in particular newer things, there is competence in AI, there's competence in systems perspectives. That's where our graduates feel less secure about what they have learned. Then these were items. Well, let me stay for with this topic for just a second. So we had this piece of information that came from this ASEE survey, but the ASEE survey, of course, is US centric. So that was not directly part of our assignment, but one of the outcomes that we have is we should really strive and get this kind of feedback globally from other countries. What is the experience of recent graduates in other countries, and what does that say about engineering education globally? And I think Global Engineering Deans Council could play a role in shepherding something like that. So on our specific topic, skills, there were. I'm just picking out one of the important lessons and leave it up to further discussion to go to other things. One of the things that we found was there is still this disconnect sometimes that was specifically mentioned, for instance, for mathematics education, that engineers are receiving mathematics courses are taught by mathematicians, not by engineers. And even though these people work at the same university and sometimes in the same building, you know, there's oftentimes not enough of a connection between what the mathematicians tell our students, what they ask our students to know, and what engineering practice is like. And that leads to things like students not being motivated, not understanding why we're asking them to learn the things we're teaching them. In a broader context, that then leads to the question of, well, can we involve practicing engineers more in our education? And there's some models in the past that have worked. Boeing had the Welliver program that had two components, which was a faculty internship, faculty working in industry for a certain amount of time and taking the knowledge that they learn in industry back to the classroom, but then industry sending their employees to the classroom teaching or co-teaching courses. And those kinds of models we felt are very promising. We should do more of these.
Great, thank you, Dietmar. That's already, and I'm writing them down as we're going, but concrete things to follow up on. I had this conversation with one of the delegates yesterday, actually, to say, you know, who was very new to the concept and say, we're struggling to catch what are those things that we should do next. And I thought this is a perfect opportunity to actually get them one by one, line by line, and saying, these are the concrete things that we should be doing next. And you've already come out with several really, really great ideas there. Let's jump back to Jen very quickly. You're taking the lead on the educational transformation. Let's hear from you and then from Jan on what were the key insights or learnings that you got from your discussions?
Yeah, I think one of the key insights was really, and this kind of happened in some of the discussions we had in the webinar that we had beforehand, is that to Maria Lara's point, we have to really do a better job of incorporating the students' voices and thoughts and desires into the work that we're doing. I feel like oftentimes industry and academia get together and, make all these great plans, but the students are ultimately the people, most impacted and most involved in that. So one of the big themes that we've seen a lot is demand from students for a more socially accountable engineering, for a more sustainable engineering. So sustainability definitely emerged early as one of the trends that was so important to transforming education. The other thing that we have heard, I can't imagine that there's anyone on this call who hasn't been involved in some discussion or other about micro-credentials over the last couple of years. And again, from the student perspective, one of the things that we're hearing is that we need to be able to have some greater customization. We are tired of hearing that we're bound by whatever the accreditors mandate. Whether or not accreditors actually mandate or not, that's a whole different conversation. But to be able to apply this manufacturing notion of mass customization to their own education and to really chart a path that works best for them, micro-credentials are a great way to do that. It really allows for a bit more of a choose your own adventure. So with those two anchors, we kind of set off to determine what do next steps look like, because those are absolutely enormous topics that could go a million different directions. Gratefully, earlier during WEEF, SOMA hosted a panel on micro-credentials. Lots of great folks on that panel. Specifically, our ABET representative, Jessica, was there and mentioned that ABET really is looking at how to start certifying in some way, not a full accreditation, but how to start acknowledging and creating a framework for micro-credentials, which really led nicely into the conversation that we had during the industry forum. So we of course didn't follow the brief, and our group chose to all stay together instead of breaking out into some smaller groups. And I think that was really, really positive. It generated a lot of great discussion, and really, I think it allowed us to take a small bite. So instead of saying, how do we address micro-credentials in their totality? How do we create a framework for that? Or how do we address sustainability in engineering in its totality? We were able to take a tiny bite and say, how do we chart a path to create a micro-credential or a framework for acknowledging some number of micro-credentials in sustainability that some accreditor, ABET or otherwise, will acknowledge? What does it look like to take one step? So we're not talking about addressing all of micro-credentials, we're not talking about addressing all of sustainabilities, but how do we do one thing, one proof of concept, and move that forward? So the team felt very strongly that we could and would commit to creating a working group that drives that, to be ready to at least materially talk more about, if not launch, when we come together in Monterey next year. I think that that's incredibly ambitious, but it's the zeitgeist. I think that the will is there. Every single person at that conference was talking about those two topics. So, like I said in the podcast, we can't keep looking to who's going to do this. We are the right folks in the room. We are the accreditors. We are industry. We are academia. We are students. We have everybody at the table that we need to make this happen.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And you've also mentioned the podcast there, which again, it's a resource that anybody can go to on the Industry Forum website. Yeah, and I'd like to follow up on what Jen said. Perhaps first of all, just to take a step back and say, what did you, coming and joining the experience for the first time in person, what do you feel you took away, insights or ideas? And then let's jump back to what Jen said, anything more that you can add about what that idea actually looks like.
So basically, what I saw is that there is a lot of common issues amongst all the groups. So when we were flipping on the tables, a lot of times people said, yeah, the other group mentioned this. Yes, it's a confirmation of kind of approach. So I think from all the topics, it was pretty clear and consistent what was in the room, which is really great. That's one thing. The other thing I want to add to what Jen was saying is the lifelong learning has getting more important. So I think we broaden our approach away from just students to also the people that work as an engineer in the field already on site. They need the same kind of upskilling that students have. So there is a pretty common understanding that you need to have new skills when you are in the industry over and over again. So that same kind of learning that students go through, the engineer in wherever he works needs to go through that as well. So it can be developed together. And I think that is something that came out of our working group as a pretty interesting idea to broaden a bit the perspective away from just students, but also for the practitioners, right? So that it all can come together. Basically, this would give or allow us to look more away from the scientific piece of something into the practice, skill building kind of stuff, because that is where the industry is looking at. And I think there were more than one company joining the industry forum that said, literally 20–30% of my workforce is walking out of the door in the next couple of years because of retirement. And I'll have a struggle how to replace this. And at the same time, and sustainable development goals comes on top now, new skills are needed. So I'm in a struggle, help me, right? That was the kind of common sense. And I believe here is where the industry and the academia can nicely work together. And we discovered that micro-credentials can be one element that can be used in the academia and industry.
And Jan, do you have a sense of what would be the immediate next step? What do you think should happen next?
From my perspective, yeah.
Yes, you're right.
All the bodies that need to have a bit of a saying and decisions need to be coming together in one table, and maybe start small with one or two examples and then expand over time. It doesn't need to be perfect, but we need a starting point. If we want to make something perfect, maybe in 5 to 10 years, we're starting with the program. But I think that's way too late. We need to start next year. So start small, grow big. That would be my advice.
Okay, so let's hear, because the idea that you're talking about from the educational transformation was actually the one that was selected by the students, right? As the idea that the students jury would most like to see implemented. So Maria Laura, a couple of words from you about what was it about that specific idea that it appealed so much to the jury, and what do you think should happen next?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. We, when we discussed about it with the other students, first of all the students that were in the jury panel were so insightful. So it was a very smart conversation, I would say, and we got to conclusions pretty fast. When we talked about the educational transformation group, we felt that the call to action was very concrete, and that's something that we liked. So we heard that they had practical plans going forward, and that it was an idea that was feasible, which is also something that made us think that's the thing that we want to see implemented, because it can be. It doesn't seem like something that is very far away in the future. It seems like a well-constructed, thought out idea that can really start being worked on soon. So that was, I think, the main reason we chose this group as the idea that we want to see implemented. So that was the feasibility of it, was a very important part. And well, they also did a really good job explaining it and just getting their idea across. So yeah, that's basically why we chose it. We really are looking forward to hearing more about it, and to being in touch with you guys again about that specific project. We as students want to be able to input there as well, and we think that is very valuable.
That's great. So there's a very strong call to action from the students there as well, saying don't do it without us. Never about us without us. Let's remain involved in the process. So that's great to hear, and I'm sure that will happen. And Maria Laura, just while we're talking about the output of the student jury, there was a second award, right? Wasn't there? You also selected the presentation which you enjoyed most, and that one was from the discovery and innovation theme, which we haven't really explored yet. Can you tell us just very briefly a couple of points about the presentation, what appealed to you, and what is it actually that the discovery and innovation working group were proposing?
Of course. So I wonder if there's anyone from that group in the audience, because their presentation was memorable for sure. So we enjoyed that they were very committed to the skit. Their attention to detail was on point. Every single thing was there. They even had a hashtag at the end that was cherry on top. And so that part we really enjoyed. And then also it was a really good idea. We feel like what they were proposing was offering or constructing a platform where academia and industry partners could be matched, and so sort of like a dating app, but for industry and academia relationships, so that the correct stakeholders would be able to match and have a long-lasting relationship without so much trial and error involved. So in itself, we think that is a very interesting idea, and we would like to see it happen. The reason that one didn't really get the award of what we want to see most is because we didn't see immediate feasibility in it. We think that maybe it was more a project that they need a third party to do. So there was a lot of talk about maybe adjusting the platform that is already there, that is LinkedIn, which already connects so many professionals and aspiring professionals. But then, so it's not something that the group itself can do. So that's basically why we didn't choose it as the idea that we want to see. But we feel that if some adjustments are made to how the project can be presented and taken forward, then it is also something very valuable that might be, might be good to see going forward.
That's really interesting to hear as well, Maria Laura, because actually one of the things we've been working on at Petrus for a while is something, not an app, but something along those lines. And I remember when Andrea, who was taking the lead on that group with Paul Gilbert from Quanser, left, she said, I actually think all the technology exists to do this. So, somebody should give it a try. I think some of the people in the group were actually keen to make a start. So let's see. And that was really very much about expectations, was the very strong word that came out of discovery and innovation, that partnerships don't work because there is not enough open, frank discussion at the beginning about expectations. What are the expectations in return for the money that's being invested? What are the expectations in terms of who's involved in the project, the amount of time that might get spent on the project, what the actual hard deliverables will be, and how will they be shared? And so, any more discussion, whether that be via an app, via a mediator, or simply with a bit more time allocated. We're all so busy, right? We don't necessarily spend the time, but getting together over a lunch, a dinner, meetings, having those open, frank discussions, exactly as you would at the start of a relationship. So yes, the presentation was very amusing on the dating up front. Thank you for that. And I'm not surprised that you and your fellow jury chose that one, Maria Laura. And let's jump back to you now, Dietmar. What was the outcome then of the work that your group did, very briefly? And then we'll jump just for a couple of minutes to somebody from the audience to tell us about the societal impact before we wrap up. So what did the skills and talent group come up with? Tell us about that.
Yeah, here is unruly Dietmar. I'm first starting with a remark on the discussion that we just had, because I think this is a really important discussion which goes to the core of what this industry forum is really all about, which is how do we improve communication between engineering educators and industry. One of the shortcomings there, and this is really an important piece of this particular theme that we just talked about, was how do we facilitate this discussion? There is this group of engineering educators. All product is engineering education, so we are naturally motivated to try and find out how we can produce the best possible product, if you will. On the side of industry, that's a little bit of a different situation because they have different products that are really at the core of their interest. And so I find that it becomes more difficult to get the kind of consistent global engagement of industry, as far as something like that even exists, that could be the counterpart of our interest, and that might be something to work on. So on my own topic, the skills and talents piece, among the important parts really there was this question of how do we facilitate the ongoing discussion between engineering educators and industry. I'm coming back to what I mentioned earlier about this idea of having faculty spend time in industry. That's a model that I have introduced here at Purdue Northwest, where we have what we call a faculty internship, where I'm sponsoring my faculty to spend a couple of months, typically over the summer, but it could be longer, which would be more the model of a traditional sabbatical, so that there's actually two pieces there. My faculty can bring their expertise to bear on problems in industry, and they learn approaches in industry that they can take back to the classroom. And then the other portion of having employees in industry participate in the teaching, in the instruction we give to our students. One of the issues there, so I mentioned before, Boeing had a program of that sort. One of the issues there was they found that this negatively, so the portion of Boeing employees being lecturers at universities, they really had people working for at least a semester, sometimes 2 semesters in universities and teaching classes. That would they found that negatively impacted the career of their employees, so that was less successful. I think there is good reason to give this another try now that we know a lot more about how we can do hybrid teaching, online teaching. We don't have to take that much in that large continuous time blocks away from the time of these employees. And I think rethinking this idea of hybrid teaching in collaboration, co-teaching between industry and university educators, that holds some promise, and that is something that is one of the core pieces that we would like to work on.
That's very interesting, Dietmar, as well, because actually that's something that came up in a webinar 2 webinars ago, when in fact it was the innovation leader IBM who was saying that was exactly one of the opportunities that they would like to jump on given their post-COVID learning. So that sounds like that's an idea of our moment as well. Maria Laura, I'm going to give you literally 30 seconds, and then I wonder whether Dora or Soma, who I see in the audience, if either of you would like to unmute yourselves just to give literally in 2 minutes a couple of comments from the Societal Impact Group, and then we'll go back to Sushma to hear, just to wrap up, what the GEDC thinks should happen next as a result of this. But go ahead, Maria Laura. Let's hear what you had to say in response to what Dietmar's comment was. You're on mute, I think. Can you unmute yourself? Sorry.
Now I can. Okay, I'm good. So I'll be really quick, but in that idea that Professor Dietmar was explaining, one of the first things that comes to my mind is, if you have industry employees teaching, how do you ensure that they are apt to teach? Because it happens so often that we get professors that don't have a, actual educational background or teaching. So that's within academia itself. Now, if you bring someone from industry, that's a detail that I think would be, if we can ensure that, having workshops for them or capacity building in teaching specifically, then that will surely make it 100 times better.
That sounds like a great idea in itself, doesn't it? Because there must be faculty and institutional leaders like yourself, Dima, who've implemented something like that. Maybe the GEDC could organise an engineer to faculty workshop wherein some of the pedagogical aspects could be inducted to make sure that we get, first of all, more engineers working from their firms but actually coming into faculty, but we share some resources in terms of making sure that they get the upskilling that they need to play a positive and a strong role as a teacher. Great suggestion. So yes, I think Soma, I have a yes from you. Soma, could you tell us just literally in 2 minutes, what were the key insights that you took from the societal impact group? Because that is such an important topic. Are you able to? Yeah, great. Welcome,
have,
Soma.
yeah. Hello, thanks for having me. I actually unmuted just now. Our group, the Societal Impact Group, was chaired by Claudette Bortos of Airbus and Yanis Stos of University of Southern California, who is the dean there. What we found is that today's students are very, very cognizant of the social issues as well as the societal impact of every engineering decision they make, the products they make, the services they provide, etc. And the second thing is that even if we look at the SDGs and overall the sustainability issues, there is a planet issue, there is a prosperity issue, or the profit issue, if you say, and then there is also a people issue. And that people issue means the societal issue. So how can the university and industry come together to address this when the students are willing to do this? What we found is that let the students come up with some solutions themselves and take one problem at a time, and that problem could be homelessness or houselessness, and then let them come up with plans and request the educators to help them work on the problem with the companies and the organizations they want to work with. What I would say that if we give them the students opportunities, they can shape their own futures and they can contribute to their societies. One thing came up at Airbus, the employees once give a lot of directions to the senior leadership team, and that worked. So that is why from there we got this idea of students coming up, this idea for their educators and administrators, as well as the company employees, the new employees and younger employees coming up with the ideas, and then they work together to make it happen. Universities alone cannot do it. Organizations alone cannot do it, but to prepare tomorrow's workforce, or tomorrow's engineers today, both can work together. So that's all. Our presentation, though the fun part was good, but Maria Laura can say that we really didn't say what we want to do well. So, oh well. Otherwise, it was a very good experience of knowing what the students want and how could they work with the employers, prospective employers, as well as other organizations on societal issues.
Thank you so much for that, Soma. I think that you described it very well in the podcast that we recorded with you afterwards. And again, you touch on another idea that could be taken forward, which is that of reverse mentoring. And reverse mentoring could be within the university, could be within the company, yes. And why not even be student organizations and the deans in a network like this, so that the topics that are of the most interest to the students are the ones that get put forward. Let me come back to Sushma. We're really running short on time now, but Sushma, I hope that you are still there to wrap up. And just from everything that you've heard now, is there a comment that you can give from the perspective of the GEDC? What do you think you should do next, having heard all of these great ideas and enthusiasm for change?
Yeah. So it was wonderful listening to the ideas and so see, there are expectations of industries, let it be innovation, creativity, skills, talent. So there are lots and lots of expectations from the industry. And as academicians, we work in our own constraint. The students are there with us for 4 years. They come with a background after post-12th. And so if we have to really match up the expectations at both the ends within these 4 years, there is a structured curriculum. The curriculum can be revamped. So curriculum design will come through the talent, skills, expectations of the industry, the delivery in the classroom, so that we can develop the skill sets of innovation, creativity, whatever are the expectations of industry, that they should be good problem solver. They should be able to find solutions to the problems which come day to day. There should be societal impact. There should be sustainability. There should be interdisciplinary working, isn't it? So lots and lots of things are required. So that can be designed into the pedagogy, and of course the delivery. And the third part is the evaluation. So in evaluation also, let us involve the industry people. And if the industry people jointly evaluate the students, the students will also know, because as Laura has also put up a lot of things. So the student psychology also has to be tackled with. And if the industry people come to evaluate the students will also realize what exactly is expected by the industry along with the academics. Okay, so academia and industry are not two different things, but how to blend them together. I think GEDC can think of certain platform to achieve these goals. There can be a matchmaking platform, but I feel it can be more regional. Every institute must have a dedicated cell, a dedicated platform to network with the industries in their own region, nearby region, so that the students can do internships for maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, or 6 months internship, whatever it is, because it has to be affordable solution also. The students cannot move out of countries and do their internship because it costs money to travel, to stay there, the expenditures are there. So we can have affordable solution of matchmaking. We can have regional platforms, identify the industries in the region, and the industries and the institutes who are interested to collaborate with the industries. That list can also be provided. And as I said, there should be a cell. So in that cell, the people responsible can do the matchmaking. And if that virtual platform is formed, and if the GEDC, through GEDC, we can give the guidelines, because we know the expectations. The only thing is how to achieve it, how to put into action. So every university, every institute has to do their own work of networking with the industries in their region. And that dedication should come through the faculty. And faculty should also go for that exposure, so that they will know what I am teaching in the classroom, how it is going to be useful in that industry. And if those case studies, those examples are given during the delivery, I think we can have much, much better graduates who will be industry ready, and we can satisfy both industries as well as students, because they'll get good placements, higher packages, and more satisfaction and happiness. That's from my end.
Thank you very much, Sushma, for that. And before I hand back to Hans, I think what I'm going to say is that really inspires me about the regional approach. And of course, we can't have every quarter or every 6 months, people flying from all over the world for a big international forum. But there's no reason why in each region, or even dedicated to a specific city, an industry forum could take place in a city or in a region or in a country. And the GEDC is in an ideal place to help facilitate that with such a global membership as you have. And I'm sure that people who've been involved and the student organizations could be involved with your regional networks as well. I know Elsevier, Siemens, your global companies, and maybe that will be a way to take this further and forward. So thank you everybody for first of all, thank you for the panelists. Thanks all for joining, sharing your insights. Soma, thank you as well for joining us. It was great to hear. Remember everybody, there's a lot of material online, and you can also find out about our next planned industry forum, which will be coming up in 2024. We'll stick a poll on the screen for you to click on while you leave, and while we do that, we'll share just some information about the final industry forum, which we need to see on the screen. Please and then in fact, I've lost, I don't know whether you're still there. Maybe you could take the poll down and let's see, because Hans is going to say something just before we wrap up. So could we have, please, the panelists back on the screen?
I'm not sure. Kirsten, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Hans. Yes, my apologies.
Well,
I don't know why, but
no, don't worry. Let me just make this is just simply an incredibly wonderful, thoughtful webinar ending our year. And the creativity and the seriousness of the engagement of all of you has just been quite inspiring. It's a wonderful way for us to continue to lay the base for our webinar series, working closely with our dear friend in India, and continue it next year. That's one point. The other point I just want to make, and thank, of course, all of you for this very thoughtful reflection. A key element, and I'm working already with several universities, without going into details, to bring even more students to Monterrey next year, where we will have our global GEDC IFES conference with our close partners at Monterrey Tech University. And although we had a very significant presence of students in Cape Town, my goal and our vision in speaking with several academic leaders and corporate is to really increase that number for a variety of reasons. I'm very excited about that. I just wanted to share that with you. I just also very briefly, I want to just make the comment also that in talking about the regional dimension, we have very strong regional networks of GEDC and IFES in Africa, for example, in Latin America, and I'm in close contact with leaders there. And for us to build on some of the thoughtful comments that some of you made in those particular regions, I'm very excited working for the first time a regional IFES GEDC conference in Tirana, Albania in March. And we are working on the details on that to bring that particular community of that part of the world together, but also connected to our global community. I just want you to be aware of that, and I obviously will provide more information on that. Hopefully, I also hope that many of us can be together at the conference, the ASCE event in Baltimore in June of this coming year. So there are different spaces regionally and globally that we want to engage you. And finally, I just want to wish all of you and your families, your loved ones, your colleagues, a wonderful transition into the next year. Please stay safe and healthy. It's been an inspiring but a very complex, difficult, challenging year for all of us at many different levels. But again, as I said, to end this year's webinar series with this very thoughtful space today is inspiring, and I want to thank all of you deeply, personally and professionally. And peace be with you, and best of health to all of you. Thank you kindly.
Thank you all. Thanks so much. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for staying with us. Look out for the follow-up. It's very interesting to have your feedback to the poll. Working on that. Look out for news, and I really hope we get the chance to get together a bit more often in 2023. Thank you so much, and thank you, Sushma, for hosting us during this great discussion. Take care, everybody, and if I don't get the chance again, happy Christmas.
Bye-bye, everybody.
That's pleasure. Bye.